Like apparently you specifically have to go through this because you can't wrap your head around how something else could be even more beneficial to you.
Yeah, and ultimately fulfilling.
Yeah. And you know, when it's hard to become more aware of yourself, trying to become aware of someone else is like the only other move you have, right? And then hopefully you can kind of like, okay, use that you just used on them on yourself a little bit,
right?
And then be able to give it back. And then just that bouncing back and forth is almost like if you looked at your relationships at 16, 17, 18, it's like you're kind of like growing in the ability to like be aware of someone else because being aware of them and then being aware of you exposes you.
Right.
And so that makes you aware of you. You know what I mean? And being seen by someone else.
No, for sure. I mean, just kind of, it's funny that you mentioned the whole looking back at like past relationships and, you know, girls that I've dated and what does that look like? And the same like reoccurring thing is like, they're all just very similar. And why is that? Okay. That has the direct, you know, representation of who I am. You know, it's like seeking something that I've been given, you know, my whole entire life. You know, my mom, that femininity, you know, the care, and then all of a sudden kind of losing that for a time period and kind of like rediscovering, like looking for that in someone else when I should have found it in myself and not anybody else. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
So, you know, just looking back, you know, with my mom and, you know, what happened with that and kind of rediscovering that there was like some form of like abandonment stuff going on. And, you know, why did I stick around in these relationships as long as I did? You know, it was that abandonment, like not wanting to go back to that past experience that I felt, you know, with my mother and during that time of feeling abandoned and her and my dad breaking up and blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? You know, so that's how I deterred away from, you know, that situation by just sticking in it and justifying actions, not even knowingly,
right?
You know,
completely unaware.
So unaware.
Yeah.
So, but it's good to be aware of that now.
Yeah.
That I can, take a step back and look at my actions and my thought process and like, you know, am I like, you know, too attached to the idea of this person? Is this fulfilling in the areas where I need it to be fulfilling in my life at this current point in my life? So that's kind of how I've been looking at, you know, relationships as of lately.
Yeah. Just
with that level of, you know, awareness with dealing with the whole mom and what's interesting, just very interesting.
Yeah.
And again, not dealing with that head on when it first initially happened. What did I do? I suppressed it. I sought out, you know, other relationships, you know, medicated myself with, you know, an SSRI. Fucking terrible idea.
You were on that for how long?
5 years.
5 years.
I described that length, you know, of 5 years as like this cloud over me. Cloud of being not emotional. Emotions suppressed. Flatline. I remember my uncle, my only uncle, my dad's brother, like passing away early from cancer, and just I was super close to him, but I was just like numb, like no emotion. So definitely not the way to go about like dealing with like, you know, traumatic stuff. You know, I should have, you know, gotten therapy, should have talked about it more, but I didn't really have anybody really to talk to at the time because my dad was kind of shell-shocked from everything, kind of dealing with it.
Yeah.
Not knowing how to deal with it for sure. And, you know, mom was, you know, long gone and brother had his own wife and relationship. So what did I do? I confided in another woman.
Yeah.
Confided in another woman, Cody.
Dude, I mean, that's like respectful. I mean, that's respectable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
I just see that's respectable to confide in another woman. Oh, yeah. Because, I mean, the feminine, a woman, for what a woman provides, you can't get it from a man. Can't get it from your father. You know, there's something that motherly support is what makes a woman.
Right.
And that relationship is so important. Just like the relationship you have with your dad, but it's just different.
Right. But again, confiding in a woman that you should be confiding in, one that's aware of what's actually going on with me.
Yeah.
So did I express all this past stuff with my mom with those current relationships? No. Yeah. Should have, so that can give them the awareness, being vulnerable in your relationship, expressing past situations like, hey, this is what's kind of quote unquote triggering for me. This is an insecurity of mine that I've dealt with in the past. Hey, just be aware of that for me. I would really appreciate it if you could respect that. If you put yourself in a situation that, I've, experienced something, some kind of traumatic or insecurity, just be aware, if you could do this, this, and this. So that's where communication is key. Yeah. Communication is key.
Yeah. And for us men, it's very hard to do because we feel like we're going to lose that strength, that power, and we'll appear vulnerable. And to a lesser woman, that is a problem.
Right.
To a woman that can't hold space for a man emotionally.
Because she can't hold space for herself.
Well, she just expects you to.
Yeah.
Like the man, like a lot of women think of a man as like, oh, you support me emotionally.
Right.
I get to act out.
Yep.
And men are like, well, I need